folks. So we are back with a new series of videos, and in this one what we will do is we will talk about the newly released agent framework from Hugging Face, which is nothing but small agents, right? So there is a prediction for 2025 that this year would be the year of agents or agentic AI. And so previously in this channel, I have talked about very detailed manner about the LangGraph agentic framework, and that is one of the popular series in my YouTube channel. So if you haven't gone through that, you can go through it. But I have found out this new framework like small agent, which uses a different concept of code agents, which we will talk about very shortly. That is kind of a very interesting. So I thought about let's create a series using this small agents where we will talk about like very different concepts of building agents using small agents. So in this video, I will talk about the getting started, and in the next few videos, I will talk about how you can build a multi-agent uh, the framework using small agents, then how also you can leverage and build a agentic rack solution using small agents, right? So without further delay, let's get started with small agents. Right, in the blog post which Hugging Face kind of launch this new agent, they kind of come up this concept of agency level, which your generative AI system should have, right? So it doesn't mean that if you are building a generative AI system, you should always build in the form of agents, right? So based on the agency level, your generative AI system can be a simple processor where the LLM output has no impact on the program flow, where the agency level is zero, right? So then you can also have a router where the LLM output kind of determines the basic control flow, and there we kind of have at least some kind of agency associated with your generative AI system. Then we have the higher agency level with the concept like tool call, where LLM output kind of determines the function execution or the tool calling, where it will not only decide which tool or function to call, but it will also tell you like what are the arguments you need to pass to those functions or tool while executing that, right? So then we have this concept of multi-step agent and multi-agent, where generally we have given full agency level as 3 stars, where the in case of multi-step agent, the LLM output controls the iteration and program continuation. So in this video, we will mainly talk about the multi-step agent, where we will see your agent will go through the thought, action, and observation, and that can go on in a certain loop to get the optimal result, right? So in the next few videos, we will talk about how you can build a multi-agent solution using small agents, where uh, one agentic workflow can start another agentic workflow, right? So as I was mentioning about this multi-step agent, so in the blog post which Hugging Face published, they have also given this example where they start with a prompt, then the agent kind of uh, goes through a thought, then it takes an action, and based on that the observation is generated, and based on the observation it can take further thought and action and observation. In that way it can go on in a loop till the final answer is generated, right? So with this concept, let's see how we can implement this type of multi-step workflows using small agents, right? So first of all, you need to do this to installation. So one of them is like this small agent, and the other one is this light LLM. So this LLM will enable you to use proprietary LLMs like OpenAI, and that you can integrate with small agents. So typically this small agents use this model named Queen 2.5 Coder 32 billion instruct version. So this is the base model they we use whenever they run this agent. So we will see how we can also use a proprietary model like OpenAI that we can integrate with the small agents, right? So once these two installations are done, then you can start building a agent, right? So but before that, what you need to do is you need to have a Hugging Face token. So you can create a login in your Hugging Face portal, and there you can get a token. So using that token you can run this small agents, otherwise you won't be able to run this small agents, right? So you can see like I am importing these two things like from small agents code agent and also the HF API model, right? So as I mentioned, like by default it will use this Queen 2.5 coder 32 billion instruct model, and using that it will run the operations, and it will build this multi-step agent using this particular model, right? But if you want to use other models like llama 3.370 billion instruct model, which is hosted in Hugging Face, then you will need a pro subscription in the Hugging Face. So then once you initialize this HF API model, then you need to pass this model in this code agent, and also you can pass the tools. But at this starting step, I am mentioning the tools equals to blank. So that means it does not have access to any of the tools. And then you can like run the agent, right? So you can run this command like agent.run, and then you can pass your prompt, right? So this is your prompt, right? So you can see like straight away you will understand that this is generating a code using this Queen 2.5 instruct model, and it's generating a Python code, and it has access to a Python interpreter, and using that Python interpreter it's running the code and it's generating the final answer to you, right? So this typically uses the concept of a very famous concept of program aided language model, which in short we call as PAL. So in PAL what we do is we leverage LLM to decompose the natural language question or the prompt into executable steps using the concept of chain of thought. Then it again uses the LLM to generate computer programs for each of the steps, and finally it gets access to a code interpreter, which can typically be a Python code interpreter, and then it will execute the program for intermediate reasoning steps to complete the or the generate the final answer, right? So this small agent typically uses this concept of program aided language models, and so that's why we call it mainly as code agents, which we have seen here. We are initializing the code agent. Now in the blog post, Hugging Face also given us few of the logical uh, explanation like why they think that this code agent works better than the other typical agents which are available in market, right? So the other agents which typically uses the concept of tool calling, typically go through this thought action observation process. So generally in this multi-step agent framework, each of the step the LLM typically writes an action in the form of some calls to external tools, right? So at first the LLM will think, then it will try to take an action by calling certain tools, and then it will generate the observation, and this process can go on till the LLM thinks that the final answer is generated, right? So this Anthropic, OpenAI, and the other frameworks typically uses the concept of JSON. So they kind of use this action generation phase where typically they write the action as a JSON of tool names and the arguments to use, right? Which tool to execute and with which of the arguments it should use to call those functions or tools, right? But in case of small agents, they kind of use this concept of code act, where they will generate the code and they will execute this code to generate the final response, right? So you can see this comparison which is given in the Hugging Face blog post, where uh, in this step like they have given the same instruction to both of these agents. One of them is like LLM agent using JSON as action, and the other one is LLM agent using code as action, right? So you can see like there are lesser steps that are involved when they are using this code act, where they will typically generate a Python code, and that would be executed in a Python interpreter to generate the final response, right? And it has been also said in the blog post that this typically results in a better output according to the user requirements, right? So with this concept, let's use more of this code agent, and now let's give the access of tools to this code agent, right? So one of the typical tool which you can use is this DuckDuckGo search tool, which is nothing but it will enable the agent to go to the web and then do the search and then bring the result, right? So you can see in the tools previously I have given this as blank. Now I have integrated this DuckDuckGo search tool, and then you can start running this agent with a question, right? So the question which I have given is, what is the result for recently concluded cricket test series between India and Australia, right? So it will go to the web and then it will try to fetch the corresponding informations using this code interpreter. So this DuckDuck search tool, they are naming it as web search, and then it's passing the query, which is like recently concluded India versus Australia test series, right? And then it will fetch the results from the internet. And once the results are fetched from the internet, then it will try to generate the final answer, right? So which will they will use this function to pass this series result, and then it will generate the final response, which you can see here, right? So you can see it's using a web search tool, but in the back end it's generating the Python code to call that tool, and then it's finally using this final answer to generate uh, the final answer, right? So this is the flow which typically the small agent uses. And you can also see like it has a system prompt, so you can get access of this system prompt in this agent dot system prompt manner, and you can look into this system prompt, like how they have designed the system prompt, right? So typically they have given a series of tasks, and then they go through a thought, and then they generate a code, right? So they have given a lot of examples for this typical flow which I have mentioned, like task, thought, code, and observation. And in that way, it can, if it needs to regenerate another type of code or another iteration of the code, then it can generate another iteration of code to finally generate the response, right? This is one of the example which I found like very intuitive and easy to understand. The task or the question was like, what is the current age of Pope, and what would be the value if you raise it to the power of 0.36, right? So then it goes through a thought that I will use the tool wiki to get the age of the Pope, and then it will do a web search. So it will generate the code, which will just call the wiki tool, and it will try to pass this argument, and it will fetch the result. So once the result is generated, then it generates an observation which tells you like uh, the Pope age is currently 88 years old. So then it again goes through a thought. So it will tell you like the instruction has been given in such a way that I know the Pope is 88 years old. Let's compute the result using Python code, right? So this is the thought which the agent goes through. Then it generates this Python code which will raise the age to the power of 0.36, and then it will finally generate the answer which will be displayed to the user, right? So you can see this is the final answer which will be generated, and that will be sent back to the user. So in that way the agent has been coded and the system prompt has been designed so that for every task it will goes through a thought, then it will generate a action, and based on the action, after taking the action it will generate observation, and then if further steps or iterations are required, then it will go through that, right? So you can also modify this system prompt, but the Hugging Face suggested that you give a clear instruction of the tools and give a clear understanding of the tools while you are designing a custom system prompt, right? So once that is done, you can also see like it has authorized imports. So because it will generate the Python code and then it will run those Python code in a code interpreter. So by default, these are the libraries which has been given access to run the Python code, right? So now let's see with this default authorized imports if you can get the result of this question, right? So what I am running is I'm asking a question like fetch the share price of Apple from uh, 2020 to 2024 and then create a line graph, right? So you can understand it will need the access, or it will need to do a web search at first, then it will try to do a Python code through which it can create a line graph, right? So at first you can see it will try to import this packages, but we haven't given the access to the matplotlib, right? So it will fail to generate the code, right? So you can see it will go through lot of iterations and it will try out different ways through which it can solve the user question. So which is a process which I like most in this framework, where it will try to learn by its own output, and it will try to do a lot of iterations to generate the final response, right? But as the authorized imports are not included for matplotlib or any other libraries that are being generated in the code itself, so it will fail and it will try to do a lot of iterations, but in the end it will fail the job, and it will. Let's try by running giving this authorized imports to the other libraries, right? So you can give a form of a list which are the other authorized imports you want to give to the agents. So you can see like math, pandas, request library, which can go to a web page and bring the information from that. Then we can also give access to the beautiful soup, which can also go through the web and bring the required informations. And we also have given the access to matplotlib and also the Yahoo Finance, right? So I have seen that these are the typical imports that has been previously used, so that's why I have given this additional import access. Now if we run this question with this authorized imports, so we hope that it will it will generate the correct code, and it will try to uh, it can generate the line graph, right? So which you can see here, after going through lot of iterations, then it finally generated this graph which tells you like what is the stock price of Apple and what was the trend between 2022 to 2024, right? So this authorized imports plays a crucial role if you are trying to build an agent using these small agents, because in the end it will try to generate the code, and that code, whatever imports it's making, then it should be included in the authorized imports. What we can talk about is we can build also custom tools, right? So custom tool, what we have also taken from the Hugging Face example is this HF model download tool, where we need to mention different description of this tool. So one of them is the name, then the description of the tool, what it actually does, then what are the inputs that this tool accepts. So we can also need to give the data type of the input, and then we also need to mention what is the output type, right? So the output type is string. So we will have need to make a implementation of the forward method, uh, which will have the required code to do the operations for this particular tool, right? So as we are trying to build a tool which will take a task as an input, and that particular task, what is the model that has the highest number of downloads for that particular task. So once you initialize this tool, then you can integrate this tool to the agent. So you can see I have initializing this code agent, then I am passing this HF model download tool, and then I am also passing the model and also the additional imports that is required, right? So then I am passing this question like what is the most downloaded model for text to image task, right? So it will identify like this is the task for which it needs to calculate the most downloaded model from the Hugging Face hub, right? So now let's see what is the flow is actually going on, right? So you can see it will identify that task is this, then it will call this method, which is nothing but the tool access which we have given. Then it will fetch the result which tells you like the most downloaded model for text to image task is Stable Diffusion V15 model, right? So using this custom tools, we can build like a lot of powerful agents, and Hugging Face is also kind of encouraging you to build your own tools, and that you can also expose to the Hugging Face hub, right? So in this way you can see like you can import the other tools as well, and also you can expose your tools for the outside world, right? So this is also a tool that is currently available in the Hugging Face hub, which kind of tells you like how you can generate an image from a prompt. So this is the particular tool which you can use. Then you can make use of this tool and make it available to your agent, right? So this next is this tool calling agent, which also support the widely used way of writing action as JSON-like blobs, which we call as tool calling agent. So it works more or less same with the code agent, but it does not needs the additional authorized imports because it will not execute any codes, right? So it will generate the action in form of JSON, and that JSON will be run to get the final response, right? So I have given this input question like, could you get me the topics related to this blog, which is nothing but my blog. So then it tries to generate the JSON code, but it runs into certain issues and it could not generate the final response which I exactly wanted, right? Then what we can do is we can talk about this, how we can leverage a proprietary model in this small agents. So the proprietary model that we will use is GPT-4o mini. So as I mentioned in the starting of this video, so we will use this light LLM model to initialize our model, and there we need to mention the model ID. And once that is done, then you need to pass this model to our code agent, and then we can start firing the question, right? So we can get the same question, and we will see like with the help of this code agent and with this proprietary model, we are getting a much better response to this question, right? So you can see like it goes through the internet and then it writes the code, then it creates a list like these are the typical topics that is present in my blog, and then it generally finally prints the topics that are present in my blog, right? So you can see already see like if you are using a code agent, so that will generate better response if you compare with the uh, JSON agent, which we also talked about as tool calling agent. So these are the things which I wanted to cover in this video. So I hope you got a good understanding and the basic building blocks of how the small agents work. So in the next video, we will try to go deep into this small agents and we will try to build either a RAG or how we can build a multi-agent collaboration using this small agents, right? So with this, I will end this video. I'll see you in the next video.